Maybe I did today. No, sorry, I don't have the backup. It's okay. I can come in. This is my feeling. This is my feeling.
That's where it's, that's where.
Good morning, Sarah. Can you hear us okay? Good morning, Sarah. Are you online? Can you hear us? Just mic checking. Okay, you're good. Okay.
Well, good morning. Happy Friday and last day of school. At this time, I'd like to call to order the Student Attendance Advisory Committee meeting at 9:01, June 6, 2025. Secretary, can we do roll call?
Roger Botten,
Present.
Tracy Moore, Carrie Pruitt,
Present?
Lacey Keeley,
Present.
Charles Aglabat,
Present.
Rayleigh Killingsworth, Danielle Valancourt. Thank you.
Are there any public comments?
There is none.
Okay. Okay, then moving on to section 2.01, approval of the minutes for the March 14th, 2025 meeting of the Student Attendance Advisory Committee for possible action. Is there any discussion regarding the minutes? Okay. Any public comment regarding the minutes?
There is none.
Okay. Oh dear, sorry. Since there's no public comment, I'd like to request a motion to approve the minutes.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second it.
Okay, Roger Botten stated the motion, and Mr. Agleblot seconded it. So any, like take a vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes. Moving to section 2.02, presentation, discussion, and possible action to provide recommendations to the staff liaison from the Student Attendance Advisory Committee members to address strategies to reducing truancy and chronic absenteeism for Washoe County students for possible action.
Good morning, everyone. Rochelle Murillo for the record. Welcome to the last day of school. This is a standing agenda item as a reminder to our committee. We have previously reviewed some of the work that our school district is doing in terms of programs and initiatives and interventions that we're providing and collaborations that we're working within to address and reduce chronic absenteeism. So the purpose of this committee, this particular agenda item is to think about from a committee perspective if there are other recommendations. As a reminder, just as an overview, some of the things that we do are working together with schools to support their MTSS system. So they collaborate with counselors, school social workers, administrators. They work within that team to determine if students need additional attendance interventions. They put students on formal attendance monitors. They can cite students for truancy. We have re-engagement specialists that work with students who are severely chronically absent or have left and are not enrolled anywhere. And they work through intensive case management. We collaborate with Human Services Agency, with school counselors, with Children's Cabinet, and other outside agencies to identify students who are in need of additional support. Those formal attendance monitors include mentoring, advocacy, and resource brokering, and those are 45 days long. We also offer student attendance review board hearings for students who are severely chronically absent. Those are interdisciplinary meetings together with the family and the school to develop plans to address specific barriers around chronic absenteeism. Excuse me. And then we provide 45 days of case management to follow through with those recommendations in that plan. So those are some of the things we're doing. We also have our middle school engagement project. You'll hear from Mr. Taylor later on in the agenda around what has been happening with that. That particular program, the purpose of that program is we see large increases in chronic absenteeism at the middle school level. So we're wanting to intervene earlier. To provide support for students at the middle school level. So those include re-engagement specialists that are located at a school site level. So there's a variety of different things that we're doing at the intervention department level, and then teachers, school staff, all staff collaboratively have teams at schools that look at their data and decide what they need to do at a school site level with attendance. And we'll hear from a few schools later on in the agenda specifically about what they're doing at their schools as well. So those are some of the programs that we're doing, but as a standing agenda, we wanted to give the committee an opportunity to ask questions or provide us considerations or recommendations on additional things that we could do to strengthen our programs to continue to reduce chronic absenteeism.
Roger Botten for the record. I think it's important also to be, again, focusing down early as prevention with elementary. So I think it might be just a suggestion coming up to see if we can get I have like 4 meetings throughout the year that we pull all the counselors and do more. We can get some of the our attendance people, someone to come more often, give updates and encouragement, and we can do a joint presentation, something about ESARB and the effectiveness of it. I think some schools, we don't have a consistent referral from all our elementary schools. I think that's really important. I see that elementary ESARB as a more effective approach than some other SARBs. I think to get the best bang for our buck, work on prevention. I'd also like to see, maybe we can talk about looking at schools and doing a semester or quarterly, something like award for the most creative interventions in addressing attendance. I know a lot of my counselors now are focusing on the attendance. I have them do a kind of closing the gap. Most of them are doing that on attendance, where they come up with their own interventions and measure the effectiveness of it. I think I could do something where I get more people presenting what they're doing, and for next year how that came out, because a lot of them are trying to address those things, but more recognition, so we keep the awareness up of the importance of attendance, especially in elementary school. so we instill consistency and a expectation that that's important as we move forward, and a habit to build in a habit of attending. Those are some of my ideas.
Thank you, Roger. In support of what you're saying, we do see that we have better outcomes with students who are working at elementary level than we do at middle and then at high school. So that's in alignment with what our data says. So this is an action item. So just to remind the committee, if they would like to vote on that as a recommendation, you can put that forth. So I'll turn it over to continue to let you discuss.
Carrie Pruitt for the record. I think that a lot of the strategies that are effective and can become more effective surround additional resources, so that's kind of a challenge. So trying to get creative around that, I'm pretty familiar with the existing processes, and I know that regarding SARB, there isn't enough time in the year for those middle and high schoolers to have meetings for all those kids. So one thing I've been thinking about, and I'm not sure how possible it is, kind of what we've done with the DIAT, the District Intervention Assistance Program team, whatever it stands for, where we had the meetings on Fridays, and then we kind of had to narrow it down due to resources. Wondering if there's a way to have some like mini SARBs at the schools, perhaps. Unless I know we have meetings, are they kind of doing that ish?
We did sort of. So it wasn't something that we said we're going to do this year, but we did end up doing those this year because families, for whatever reason, couldn't make it, or the time that we typically, when we provide SARB, it's always between 11 and 3 on Thursday. And for elementary, it's between 1 and 3 on Wednesdays. Well, that doesn't always work with families who are, with the schedule of families who are working. So we did offer that case by case and by need. So that's something we could be more intentional about. It just is a matter of time and manpower, right, to be able to meet those needs. But we did offer that when we had families who wanted to meet with us, wanted resources, and they couldn't make it to the times that we normally offer them.
And I realize you can't be at all of those, even if they're at the schools. So, and I also understand the schools are calling those. I know we, as a Human Services Agency, request those meetings sometimes too, because sometimes we're at a loss, everybody is, as far as how to help families and how to get these kids to school consistently.
Roger Botton, for the record. A question, what is our capacity right now? Is it just filled our schedule? I know there's a lot of them. Do we even have room to do any more?
We don't have any more capacity in terms of staff time. We booked out probably, I would say by April, we were booked through the end of the school year. So there's a lot of need and not enough staff and I will say, when we're looking at overall chronic absenteeism, we won't know for about a month or two what the final numbers are. Last year, I think we were at 23% of students that were chronically absent. So that's, that's thousands of students that are chronically absent. And we typically see a couple of hundred students through SARB. So we're typically seeing students who are severely chronically absent. So we're not meeting with every student that's severely chronically absent.
Carrie Pruitt for the record. I also just would like to add that outside of the actual SARB meetings, there are a lot of interventions that schools do implement. And I think, a lot of people here know this, but just for the record, I know with our agency, our workers, our intake especially, have been kind of hung up on the SARB. Have they been SARBed? Have they been SARBed? And we've been trying to internally educate them to say, well, prior to SARB, there are all of these interventions that need to take place. So let's look at that. Let's see what other things the school has been doing and maybe could be doing, and we could be doing collaboratively outside of SARB, because not all those kids are going to make it to SARB.
Right. Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that. And we have also worked this year in building the capacity around interventions at a school site level, because we understand SARB can't meet the need. And the best thing for us to do is to have people who students have relationships with, who families have relationships with, work that with them, rather than people who don't know them, working with them. So because we don't have the capacity to meet all of the needs, we've been working on building that capacity at school site level so that they can provide those interventions when needed as well.
Charles Aglabot for the record. Are there any schools who are implementing or that are implementing positive reinforcement programs? One time, I can't remember when, either April or May, we recognized the principal of Echo Loader Elementary School. He divided the school or classes into houses just like Harry Potter, and they had programs, they had contest awards and stuff like that. And he was telling our group that it was pretty effective in developing or addressing chronic absenteeism. So are there any other things that other schools are implementing? And if so, we need to recognize them and make sure that other schools know about those programs and support those programs instead of, well, I'm not saying we should not bulk up ESARB or SARB, but those are other things that we could do and to address the issue.
Right. So that's a good point. And we had a ton of different examples this year. I co-presented at our principal meeting earlier this school year with a few principals who are doing just that. Kate Smith was one. That was a really good example. She does a lot of tier 1. So tier 1 is, everyone is experiencing these things. Lots of great messaging, culture, and climate that was really positive, partnering with families, doing work specifically with moms and dads at school to include them in the school. So Kate Smith was a really, really great example. There was lots of different examples that we tried to highlight in our internal newsletter that we have, so principals could see and learn from each other. But we had these learning opportunities at our principal academies where principals were co-presenting with me about some of the things they were doing so they could learn from each other. And we will continue that next year around ideas. What can you do at a tier 1 to message the importance of good attendance habits, particularly at an elementary school level. So,
Sorry, Charles Aglabot for the record. My apologies. I was looking at the name of the principal at Echo Loader. I couldn't remember his name.
oh,
Roger Botton for the record. Charles' suggestion kind of goes along with mine that maybe looking at an award,
Yeah,
schools,
for schools,
principals always like that. You come up, doesn't have to be a big thing that, it helps publicize it with other schools, something like that would
Right.
be interesting. The most creative, maybe on a elementary, middle, and high school award on that, what they're doing most improved, something like that. It would be nice. Goes along with that positive reinforcement, works for staff as well as students.
Yeah, Charles Aglabot for the record. And we could also, instead of meeting, or in addition to meetings, we could just every quarter we could go to the school and give them the award and recognition. Something to keep in mind.
Roger Botton for the record. I think that's also another good idea. I think that also increases our board involvement or something like that. If people can arrange that, at least even one member of it can go and award them. And it says you've been seen from the outside or something like that. But the board level would be interesting.
Carrie Pruitt for the record. I want to, again, I think I mentioned this in the last meeting, but I want to give some kudos to the newest member of the intervention team, which is Taylor Schuster, and she's assigned to support foster care, our foster kids, and she's been amazing. I'm really, really happy that funding has been extended through next year, so we get to have her next year. But she forms relationships with these kids. Some of them she's had relationships with from her previous employment, and we case manages with the workers and with me, and we work through these tough cases where kids are having a hard time getting to school. We've met with outside agencies to get creative to incentivize these kids, and I just wanted to say thank you and just lift her up and give her a little extra kudo today.
Thank you for that, Carrie. These are often pretty complex cases. They're not just kids who are not getting up in the morning or not motivated. They're complex in many different levels and layers of challenges, and so we're lucky to have Taylor.
So could I make a motion to?
Yeah, I can
vote?
summarize really quick what I heard, the suggestions, and then you can do your motion, Roger. There was highlighting most creative interventions, particularly with counselors, participating more regularly with counselor meetings and updating them, particularly around the importance of ESARB and what ESARB can do. And award for elementary schools around best practices and potentially this committee going out and doing presenting the principal with an award. So that's what I heard. Please let me know if I missed anything.
Roger, can I jump in just
Roger.
real quick?
Yeah.
Lacey Keel for the record. I love all of this. I think that it's amazing that we're finally thinking of some things on how we as a committee can be a little bit more forward facing in the community and within our school district. My heart bleeds for our high school students right now, and to echo exactly what Rochelle was saying. It's very complex what they're facing. And I've had the opportunity and privilege to serve on this board for years alongside many of you. And I really feel this year especially, we've, as a community, have tried to get a lot of youth voice involved at different levels, right? Youth mental health, youth juvenile that are affected by the juvenile system, that are in our foster care system. And we have a lot of middle school, and I want to say early intervention student voice, but I'm wondering how we can strengthen that at the high school level, a little bit more with those students that are facing the barriers. A lot of times those students that are on our leadership clubs that might offer voice and advocacy may not be facing the barriers of being a foster youth, really facing the eloping phase, right? Or a youth that is a parent and doesn't have attachment in their social connection. And so thinking and reaching outside of the box on how we can use that student voice to also help us understand the new impacts that these high school youth are facing within our community and in the district, I think is something that is really valuable to also consider.
Lacey, I will just add, coincidentally, so we do have a student voice program within our school district where they're leading various student voice projects. And that student voice program is now under my department. Just for this committee to know, that's something that we can, it's brand new. They just started with me in June 1st. So navigating what that could look like is something that we could even have students come and present to this committee around their perspective on attendance.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But they could do projects,
Yeah,
student voice projects around it too. So I'm just learning, brand new, so I don't know yet. But just so this committee knows, this will be within my department now.
And I agree that a student voice is important. And I just encourage, I think they do try to have a mindset of diversity in picking students. And I think that's part of it, but I encourage that that's really important that we get, the students that do represent, a lot of different areas, and maybe our CIT and our foster kids. I know they do GLBTQ plus, voice as well. But I think some of those areas that look, that we don't always just look for the best and brightest of the students, that everyone has a voice, and that's important as well.
Carrie Pruitt, for the record, I wanted to just tag on to a couple of those ideas because I love the idea of recognizing schools for their efforts and also including student voice. And I'm wondering if there's a way that we could fold in maybe per school. Not sure, I haven't completely formulated this great idea, but finding a way to maybe recognize students that have most improved within the chronic absenteeism realm, because those kids have to make marked differences in their attendance that have been in the 20s, 30s, 70% chronically absent, to then get down to the teens or just to bring it down exponentially during the school year is a really huge deal, and finding a way to recognize the students as well as the schools somehow.
Roger Botton, for the record. I'd like to make a motion that the Student Attendance Advisory Committee establish awards to honor and recognize schools and students who have improved attendance, and also come up with creative ideas that we can recognize, and that we present those, as a board.
I second that. Charles Agluba for your motion. I second that.
Okay, motion presented by Roger Botton and seconded by Charles Aglubat, and motion passes. Oh, wait, I knew it. Sorry. I was thinking at the same time, sorry. May I ask if everyone is in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay. Item 2.03, presentation and discussion of the final numbers for the Student Attendance Review Board and formal attendance monitors for the 24-25 school year, completed by the Washoe County School District Intervention Department for presentation and discussion only.
Okay, so I just have preliminary numbers, and then when we meet again, when we return for the school year, I'll have outcomes for you, but today's the last day of school, so we don't have outcomes yet, but I wanted to present some preliminary numbers. So we extended our formal attendance monitors, which were previously 20 days to 45 days, and you may recall the reason we did that is we looked at the outcomes of 20-day monitors, and those monitors showed no impact on attendance. But we had some data that showed that our re-engagement specialists who work longer with students did have some positive impact on attendance. So we changed the amount of time that we provided that attendance monitor from 20 to 45 days. So we're hoping to present what the outcomes are to you in an upcoming meeting. We did a total of 763 formal attendance monitors. We did 242 at an elementary school level, 250 at a middle school level, and 271 at a high school level. So we will have those outcomes so that you can see, did we make any changes for those students and their attendance when we had them on a formal attendance monitor. And as a reminder, we're looking at their attendance regularly. If they're not coming to school, we're doing home visits, we're transporting them back to school, we're providing mentoring and advocacy, making sure that they're connected to resources and reducing any barriers to attendance during those times. For our Student Attendance Review Board, we did a total of 188 hearings. We did 85 at an ESARB level, so that's elementary school, and we did 103 at a middle high school level. And again, those are 45 minutes to an hour meeting with a student, the legal guardian, the school, and then some other professionals that provide some guidance and expertise around things that we can do to put resources into place and again reduce those barriers to attendance. And then we have a re-engagement facilitator who provides 45 days of case management. So those were the numbers. Many of them were family SARBs. So if we received a referral for one student, we included the entire family this year. So these were actual hearings, but the actual numbers of students that we served based on family number is going to be higher than 188.
Carrie Pruitt, for the record, I realized that we had an action item and I didn't ask if there was public comment.
There was none.
Okay, thanks. Okay, item number 2.04, presentation and discussion of the progress of middle school engagement project from the Washoe County School District Intervention Department. For presentation, discussion only.
Good morning, everyone. Doug Taylor, attendance manager for the district, for the record. Wanted to give you a final update for this year with regards to the middle school engagement project. We've talked about that project in this meeting, but in these meetings before. That was the project that started now 4 years ago, which placed at that time intervention prevention specialists at 5 of our area middle schools. This year, we were able to reclassify those positions from intervention prevention specialists to re-engagement specialists, and it was our hope in doing that that we would be able to have a little bit more sustainability and a little bit more continuation of people in the positions, because one of the problems we had in the past was being able to attract and retain people in those positions. And that was really successful. We hired at the beginning of this year all 5 schools, and we were able to keep all 5 of those positions filled with the same people all year long. So that was a huge benefit. As of the most recent data that I was able to pull, we were able to provide direct case management to 563 students across those 5 middle schools this year with those re-engagement specialists, which is actually a little bit over our goal. Our goal was that each one of those specialists would case manage 100 students at their school. And so we went over that by at least these 63 kids, and there were probably a few more than that that weren't in the data that I pulled when I pulled it. So really we're able to work with a lot of kids directly at those 5 schools. Typically when we're pulling students, we're looking for kids that are between the 7% and 20% chronic absenteeism range. 7 to 10% would be those students that are just approaching chronic absenteeism, and then 10 to 20 would be those students that are in the chronic range. So that was our primary area of focus. We did sometimes work with students that were above and sometimes well above that range if that was the need. But as Rochelle mentioned, we find that we're much more successful with earlier intervention than with later intervention. And so that's why we tried to have those specialists really work to catch those students before they got to the 30, 40, 50% point in their chronic absenteeism. One thing that's really kind of another cool little data point is I went back and I pulled like how many students have we worked with across the life of this program, and we're up just over 1,500 students now that have been served by this program across the years in the middle school engagement grant, and so that's a lot of kids that have had somebody work with them that if this program didn't exist, they wouldn't have had those kinds of supports. Things that we did for the last quarter, since the last time I talked to you guys, we really focused a lot on transitions and helping students transition successfully from the middle school or to the middle school. So we met with the high school counselors and high school administrators and had conversations with them about outgoing 8th graders that we had been providing case management for and the supports that we provided so that those high schools that are getting those students would not be starting from square one. We also work to go out and meet with all of the elementary schools that have 5th graders that are going to be coming up to the middle schools next year. And so the re-engagement specialists joined with counselors on those middle school visits. We've done the middle school visits for years where either the 5th graders come up to the middle school or the middle school staff goes down and meets with the 5th graders. Most of the time it's actually both of those things that occur. But the re-engagement specialists were a part of all of those meetings. And their area of focus was making sure that those students already had someone that they knew at their school so they could start building that trusted adult relationship. As we've talked about in the past, one of the big barriers that we tend to see around attendance is when students do not perceive that they have a trusted adult relationship at school. We all know that everybody in education is in education because we want to help kids, right? But sometimes kids don't have that perspective that, oh yeah, these people are right. And so being able to start the building of those trusted adult relationships with those fifth graders before they walk into their first day as a sixth grader at the middle school, or with those eighth graders that are going up to high school, being able to connect them with folks. So that's been a big area of focus for us right now. As you know, other areas of focus for the middle school engagement program involved engagement clubs and activities, and being able to run clubs and additional like extracurricular kinds of activities to help students engage in schools. And so we had a lot of clubs run at our schools. We have funding in the grant that pays for this to also pay for teachers to offer stipends for teachers to facilitate clubs, and also for us to buy materials for those clubs. And so just as a quick sampling of some of the clubs that we had open gym and intramural clubs at some of the schools that were really successful, either before school, after school, where kids could come in and participate in athletics kind of activities. We had 3D printing clubs going at a few of the schools where students were learning how to print and use the 3D printers, but then also how to design things that they could print for themselves. And I think that's really the coolest part of those clubs is, oh, you know, I want a special bookmark, or I want something that can accomplish a task for me, and I'm going to design this thing to do it. We had chess clubs going at most of the schools. We had coding clubs where they were using tools like Code Academy or others to be able to learn how to program computers. We had rainbow clubs celebrating LGBTQ communities. We had a roller skating club at one of the schools. Dungeons and Dragons, which I played in the 70s. I didn't know that was still a thing, but that has become like a huge draw for kids. We had anime clubs, Rubik's Cube clubs, robotics, all kinds of clubs and engagement activities that went on across all the schools. And it wasn't the same, but all the schools, there was a form that students had access to, or if they wanted a club, the students were the ones that would get to like, oh, you know, me and my friend want the Rubik's Cube club. We approached such and such a teacher to be our advisor, and then they would turn that into the re-engagement specialist who would help facilitate the setup of that club for them. So that was really successful in terms of working with students and getting them involved and engaged in school beyond just academically. We don't have final data in terms of effectiveness for this year. I did do a random sampling where I pulled 25 students, 5 from each school, and just kind of wanted to look at, you know, what did we see in terms of chronic absenteeism. Now, I cannot guarantee that this random sample, small sample, will carry over to the larger data set, but for those 25 students, we saw an average decrease of 11% in chronic absenteeism. So just looking at that small piece of data, it appears early indicators would show us that we have really good success from this program. Questions about that?
Yeah, good, Roger Botton. Good work with that. That's
Thanks, Roger.
nice stuff.
Thanks, Roger. I appreciate that, and I want to make sure that it's the specialists that do the work, right? My team at the schools. I'm happy to lead that team, but we couldn't do it without those folks at the schools.
I love it. Carrie Pruitt for the record. The fifth grade kids move into sixth grade. I think you said they have a chance to go to the school like over the summer prior to school starting to feel comfortable with campus and learn how to use a locker. Some of these minor things that we don't think about, right, as parents and professionals. Can you tell me a little more about that? Because I know you guys are doing that, but I'm just wanting to remember exactly what that looks like. That's
sure.
Great.
So it looks different from school to school, depending on how many feeders they have, depending on how the counselors have set up those transitions. All of the schools do what's called matriculation meetings, and those actually happen in this school year. Those have all happened at this point, where typically what happens there is one of two things, and usually it's actually both of these. So the counselors from the middle school will go and visit the elementary school, and we'll meet with the fifth grade classes, and we'll talk to them about what classes will look like at the sixth grade level, how many classes they're going to have, what electives are available at the various schools. And then students will have a process to sign up for those classes. But then normally also the fifth grade teachers will take a field trip to the sixth grade. Or to the middle school, and the kids will get a chance to like sit in the gym and walk around. It's funny you mentioned lockers. I was a sixth grade teacher when sixth grade was in elementary school for like a large part of my career, and the lockers was always like the number one thing that kids were worried about, which was, I was always kind of like, really, you're worried about the locker or not? But anyway, but they do get a chance to walk around and look at the school and meet the teachers, meet the principal, and a lot of those is actually facilitated by Roger's team, by the school counselors. My team took part in that this year, but it is the counseling department that takes a large part of the responsibility for doing that. Also, most of the middle schools host back-to-school events or other types of welcoming events for students. They'll do barbecues or other kinds of events where they invite families and kids of the incoming sixth graders to come to the school over the summertime, or sometimes it's like right before school starts, and be able to meet with lots of teachers and administrators and folks at the school so that they start to build that relationship.
Thank you, I appreciate that. We have some movement with our foster kids during the summer, so I will, we definitely reach out to the schools, but the challenge is sometimes, the counselors don't come back until the week before school starts, and maybe that ship has sailed for some of those events. So there's re-engagement officers also are on contract as of.
Yeah, those staff, we're getting a little bit off the agenda item, but there are attendance officer re-engagement specialists that work all summer, so they can support students.
Just as re-engagement officers are supporting the middle school program.
Yeah. They're slightly different. So the middle school re-engagement specialists work the school contract.
Right.
But we do have within our department other re-engagement specialists.
Sorry, they're different re-engagement.
There's
kind
a
of the same title, but
facilitator.
they're different.
Yeah, facilitator and specialist, and then there's middle school. It's complicated.
Okay.
But yeah.
But we
Got
have
it.
people.
Okay, all right, thank you. There's no other discussion. I'll move on to, thank you very much. Appreciate that. 2.05, which is presentation of a video of school attendance systems. What are schools doing to address chronic absenteeism for presentation and discussion?
Yeah. So I'm staying up here for that one because I'll preface this a little bit. So we did put together this year videos with schools and principals, and we looked at what are some of our common root causes that we see students not attending school. And based on those three large buckets of reasons why students don't attend, and those being lack of trusted adult relationships, peer relationships and conflict, and academic insecurity, we went out and we visited with 3 schools that you're going to see here on the video in a moment, and the kind of schools that had really done a good job in reducing chronic absenteeism this year. And we talked to them about, hey, what did you do around kind of those 3 buckets? And so this is one of those videos.
Last year, when we knew that we needed to focus on our chronic absenteeism, we decided to come up with a motto, and that motto was Anderson is the place to be from 9 to 3. And before school started, we had a large parent event. All the parents came with their student, and we messaged that strongly. Anderson's the place to be from 9 to 3. Our dean works really hard looking at the data, figuring out which students are really struggling, trying to figure out if there's a problem for them. Everybody is welcoming to all of our students, education for our parents to know that being here is the pathway for their students' success, and every single person who works here at Anderson Elementary School truly, absolutely believes that our students can do anything that they want to do if they're here every day.
Having our parents know that we're here for their kids, we're also here to remove some of those barriers that are in place that make coming to school hard sometimes. We're here to help remove some of those, or at least decrease the barriers, or help them get over some of those challenges so that their kids can come and really access their education.
What it's going to look like when I do graduate, and they talk like that, not if I graduate, when I graduate high school, and their next steps. So the opportunities that we're able to give them is what gets me energized to come to work every day.
The students need to take ownership of their own academic and education, and so it kind of triggered this idea, well, let's give them the tools to take ownership of their education. What we've tried to do this year is we keep them in what we call an academic recovery, and we kind of coach them through sending emails to their teachers explaining, hey, this is what the story's been.
You owe this to yourself. You need to get your diploma. Even if you don't think you do, we are here to help you get it. We want you to be successful, and we want you to be able to do anything you want to do when you leave here.
I came up with Anderson's the place to be because I enjoy coming to work every day. I know my teachers and my staff enjoy coming to work every day. We have a real big collegial atmosphere here.
It's set up as a playlist, so it just plays all three of them.
Carrie Pruitt, for the record, I really appreciate that. I'm stuck on that term academic recovery because I know that a lot of kids have a hard time just raising their hand in class, let alone asking their teacher a question or even emailing, so that communication between student and teacher is really important to learn. And wondering how we can, if that type of teaching is happening a little younger too, because that's a huge barrier. A lot of kids are just terrified to talk to their teachers. And that follows over when they get to college. My daughter was doing the same, like, oh, I actually can go talk to, getting over that hurdle of feeling uncomfortable. So I love it.
Definitely, thank you. Yeah, being able to address those academic insecurities is one of our real keys to improving absenteeism.
No other discussion? Okie doke. Really enjoyed the video. Want to watch the other two.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much. Okay, do we have any additional public comments?
We do not.
Okay. Well, on to the next item, 3.02, announcement of the next meeting, which will be held September 12th, 2025. And 3.03, I'd like to adjourn this meeting at 9:45. Have a great day and summer.
Thank you, everyone.